What's up guys, Dutogiraikonoka here, and welcome to another Theorycrafting with, well, obviously, me. Today we are going over Dragadin, actually. The kind of emerging Dragon Paladin deck that could potentially be pretty powerful in the new meta. To me, this is basically what the deck could look like. I'm not saying this is exactly what it will look like and that I am completely spot on and infallible in my analysis of how to build a Dragadin deck, but I believe that Dragadin will end up looking something like this, if not exactly like this. So, let's kind of go over the basic deck and its synergies and what you can do. First up, you actually still run pretty similar early game to a regular Paladin deck. You run a 1 of equality to help you clear the board with Consecrate or with a Knife Juggler Muster. You run Shielded Minibot because it's a super powerful opener. And I had stated earlier in card reviews that it's possible that with Dragadin you could run something like Fairy Dragon instead of Shielded Minibot. But what I kind of came to realize is that a lot of the cards that really synergize with dragons that gain a benefit of if you are holding a dragon, you want later game dragons for that so you can hold them. You don't want a dragon that you play to the field, so your early game actually should not consist of dragons anyway. With Priest, there was a small exception that made Dragon Priest not work because you had the Twilight Whelp that wanted you to run early dragons to synergize with it and make it work. But Paladin's Dragon class card does not work that way, and thus mid-range dragons and their synergies are what you need. You don't need early game dragons. So you can still run Shielded Minibot as a 2-drop, you can still run Knife Juggler as a 2-drop, nothing prevents you from running those cards. Okay, I know, dog. Get up. Pushy animal. So insistent. My goodness. You guys don't know what it's like to have a dog like this? Okay, I really can't complain about this dog. She's adorable. But yeah. Then for 3-drops, you still have to run Big Game Hunter. The fact that Dr. Boom is powerful has not changed, and just because in a dragon-style deck you're not going to see a Dr. Boom does not mean every class is going to try to run dragons now. In fact, only Paladin should try to run dragons now, in my opinion, and this Big Game Hunter still has valid targets with I guess the occasional Ragnaros out of Control Warrior, Alistraza, and Dr. Boom, of course. So you still have to run him, because nobody can have any fun. This game is not fun. You play to win. You still run Muster for Battle, because this is a really kind of a keystone combo component. It spawns you 3 minions from one card and gives you a weapon to help you trade. So what this does for you is it sets up plenty of minions that you can sacrifice to trigger the trademark Blackrock text of cost 1 less for each minion that's died this turn. So it allows you to set that combo up, and should allow you to trade favorably. On top of that, you can still run a 1 of Quartermaster if you want to, just to put the fear of that combo into your opponent. The 1 of Quartermaster is something I'm still not certain of. Maybe you shouldn't be running that, and your recruits are just there to trigger the value text, I guess I should call it. But for now, I think running a 1 of Quartermaster is decent enough. You also run Blackwing Tech over Aldor Peacekeeper, because having a 3-5 is a little better than having a 3-3. I understand that Aldor is really, really powerful for taking care of large minions that your opponent has. If you want to trade with a Dr. Boom, Aldor is your best friend. If you want to go deal with Vol'jin, Aldor's there for you. You want a high main useless? Done. But this Paladin deck is more aggressive than other Paladin decks were. And it actually speeds up a good bit more than other Paladin decks did off of the triggering of the whole value text thing. So, yeah, there's that. What you do from there is you still run True Silver. It's amazing. There's no reason not to run it. You still run Consecrate. It's a board clear. It synergizes with value text, and just because you're running a mid-range dragon deck doesn't excuse you from the fact that you need some sort of board clear. And yeah, now you have a quality Consecrate combo too. The deck also runs Hungry Dragon, because Hungry Dragon is ridiculous in terms of its synergy with value text. It runs this over Shredder. And I actually have the other deck here, just to kind of do a side-by-side comparison there. Shredder is swapped out for Hungry Dragon. And the reason why Hungry Dragon is so synergistic with value text is that it does in fact summon a 1-cost minion for your opponent, which it can trade into, which triggers a minion being dead for cards like Solemn Vigil and Volcanic Drake. So, yeah, Hungry Dragon in this deck is, in my opinion, far superior to Piloted Shredder, because not only is it a big beefy minion, but it helps you trigger the value text, and it's a dragon, so it triggers Blackwing tech. You're also running Solemn Vigil, as I stated. Since part of the idea with this deck is to use your early game minions like Shielded Minibot and little Silverhand Recruits to sacrifice for value, the idea is to do something like muster in a turn or board wipe your opponent, or even just kind of spam the board with small minions and trade and get everything killed off and then swamp your opponent by summoning, or not summoning, by playing a very cheap Solemn Vigil. Usually, I mean, the dream is to turn 3 muster with some sort of 2-drop being on the field so that you can kill off your opponent's board and then kill off your own board, cast basically a free Solemn Vigil to draw 2 cards, increasing your chances of hitting Volcanic Drake, throw down a Volcanic Drake, and maybe it's even free at that point, and then you throw a Hungry Dragon on top of it, because, my goodness, that's OP. Yeah, that's the dream. But even if you don't get to that dream, and you only play like a 2-mana Solemn Vigil after a muster for battle, that's a lot of value. 2 mana, draw 2, I mean, that's 2 cantrips in 1. For the price of 2 cantrips. That's pretty ridiculously good. So there's that. You also run Dragon Consort, rather obviously. It is a 5-mana 5/5, which means it trades with Lotheb, it trades with Sylvanas, it trades with Emperor Tharazan. It's just really good. And it also innervates your next dragon, which takes a lot of this deck's late-game dragons and puts them into the mid-game, which is where it is so much faster than other Paladin decks. Not only are you doing these value plays to cast more expensive cards like Solemn Vigil and Volcanic Drake for a low amount of mana to play everything in this hyper value turn in the mid-game, but you then can use Dragon Consort to further speed your late-game dragons into the mid-game and just continue to roll your opponent over. So that's the point of Dragon Consort there, being flagship card of Dragadin. You also run Blackwing Corruptor because it's a miniature fire elemental and you have a dragon deck. Why would you not run it? Yeah. I already explained the Quartermaster just to keep the Silverhand Recruits relevant. Perhaps this is a mistake on my part, but as a priest I know the existence of Quartermaster means that I am often inclined to trade even Blade Masters. Not get them killed, of course, but have them clear Silverhand Recruits as opposed to going face, because a Quartermaster could be devastating. So, if you're playing a dragon deck and it still has Quartermaster, your opponent still fears those recruits. If, on the flip side, if you're playing a dragon deck and your opponent knows it doesn't have Quartermaster, he's not as scared of the recruits. Of course, he's still a little frightened that you could sacrifice them as a pseudo-innervate almost in this deck, but there's not that fear of, oh my goodness, he could Quartermaster that and then just super steamroll me. So, the Quartermaster is something I'm not going to guarantee will be there in a final version of a Dragadin deck, but I feel like it's the right choice. We also run Emperor Tharazan because this continues with the entire idea of hyper value. You play an Emperor Tharazan turn 6 that enables a turn 7 Chromagus. It could discount the cards in your hand. It's just really good, basically, for value. And this deck could use value. Still runs Sylvanas because this is a mid-range deck and Sylvanas is the queen of mid-range. I mean, trade into your opponent's Emperor Tharazan or Blackwing Corruptor or anything and take another minion. That's just strong. Volcanic Drake's an obvious pick because of the value text. So it's part of the Steamroll Wombo combo with sacrificing minions, like your little Silverhand Recruits, to roll your opponent over. We also run Chromagus, because when synergized with Dragon Consort, you could play a turn 6 Chromagus, and if your opponent does not immediately answer it, and trust me, from turn 6 it's hard to answer Chromagus unless you're a priest with Shadow Word Death, or like a hunter with Hunter's Mark and Unleash or something like that, you're going to start getting a lot of value off of your card draw, and so this further contributes to the entire value plus tempo aspect of this deck. The deck runs Tyrion because Tyrion is still arguably the best legendary card in the game, so value. And the deck runs Onyxia as a substitute for Dr. Boom, because 1, Onyxia is a dragon, and 2, if you use something like a Dragon Consort to innervate out Onyxia, it's a 7-mana 8/8 that fills your board with 1/1 whelps, which only helps contribute to a value turn follow-up. Even if you don't Dragon Consort on Onyxia, the whole value text trigger makes Onyxia a contender with Dr. Boom for value and tempo in this deck. And with Emperor Tharazon, you could still potentially, assuming he lives for 1 turn after being played, play Onyxia on turn 7 without the Dragon Consort. So I feel like there's a lot of potential for Onyxia in this deck to actually become a replacement for Dr. Boom. And it's also a dragon. You just don't get that much better than that. You will notice that this deck does not run, as compared to the current mid-range Paladin, it does not run a lot of taunts. It does not run very many heals, with Anti-Keelbot and Lay on Hands being gone. It does not run Harrison Jones to help in the Warrior matchup and Oil Rogue matchup. But the entire idea with this is that you are supposed to out-tempo your opponent and just have them dead. When you have these kind of longer-lasting matches, with healing specifically at least, you should end up just out-trading your opponent, because in those aggro matchups, your opponent's playing small minions, you're playing small minions in the early game along with them. You do a bunch of trading in 1 turn, and you just steamroll them because you drop Solemn Vigil and Volcanic Drake, and maybe even another Volcanic Drake, if the dream just went off, and your opponent cries, because you just rolled them over. So maybe this is a little too gimmicky of a deck. Maybe, you know, my version is too kind of greedy, but I feel like this is along the lines of what Dragadin will look like. Maybe you don't run Sylvanas because you actually need a tech card like Harrison Jones. Maybe you drop the Quartermaster for a tech card, or don't run Solemn Vigils, preferring instead to run something like Lay on Hands and Anti-Keelbot, because 1 Lay on Hands giving you 3 card draw is somehow enough to support a whole deck, even though the current mid-range Paladin has next to no card draw aside from Lay on Hands. It arguably has a little bit more against a deck that runs weapons. But yeah. So that's the idea with this deck. You're just supposed to out-tempo your opponent, or outvalue your opponent, really. But I would not argue that Dragon Paladin or Dragadin can actually outrace its opponent, because a lot of the tempo and value lead that this deck establishes will come from trading. And so the early game is more about trading than going face, which means you're not a super quick aggro deck, at least. You do still qualify as an aggro deck, but you're more mid-range, along with such decks as mid-range Hunter. So, yeah. This is what I think Dragon Paladin will look like. If you guys have other ideas for what will be in this, feel free to leave comments about it. I'm more than open to feedback on my own deck building, and I do not think by any means that I am a master Paladin deck builder. I wouldn't even go so far as to say I'm a master priest deck builder. I think I'm actually very far off from being that in Hearthstone. But I can still have ideas, and who knows, maybe I finally had a good one. Yeah. So, thank you guys for watching. And again, if you have feedback, feel free to leave it. And I'll see you guys next time if I come up with any other sort of interesting deck ideas for Blackrock. And if not, then I will see you once they open the first wing on Friday. And we'll do a full clear on Heroic as Priest, and a clear of the class challenges. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time, whenever that should be. Take care.